Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. My name is Sarah Kogiani, Product Marketing Manager at Atlassian, and your moderator for the next 30 minutes or so. Today's topic is Fast Agile IT Service, and we've got a great event for you today. I'm very excited to be joined by three IT professionals in the medical industry. I'd like to introduce you to Andy Fleming, Managing Director at Halogenics. Halogenics is a Melbourne-based software provider for medical research companies. They work closely with many of Australia's top medical research institutions, developing, implementing, and supporting technology systems to facilitate better research. Good morning, Andy.
Morning.
Also joining us from DC, Dave Weir, IT Manager for Magview. Magview is the maker of mammography products made for hospitals and medical care facilities. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
So let's take you through the categories of questions from our audience. Your IT ecosystem, team chat, and why HipChat, monitoring support activity, and tips for fellow Atlassian users. So the first question, and this is something that comes up a lot. Everyone wants to know what the grass is like on the other side. So what does your internal IT ecosystem look like? Which products do you use for ticketing, development, and server monitoring? And we'll start with Andy from Halogenics and then Dave from Magview following.
Okay, we're using a lot of the Atlassian stack. We've been using Jira and Confluence basically since we set up the company after trying a couple of other systems initially. But we've got Jira for all of our development stuff with Agile and a few things like that. We use HipChat for all of our inter-office communications and also as a central monitoring system or command center. Confluence has our documentation and we do some of our support through that. And then we've got Bamboo and Bitbucket for our build management and source control. For our monitoring toolkit, we have New Relic and Boundary running, and our newer web applications are using MongoDB. So we're using the Mongo MMS system for monitoring versions and also uptime and general load on those Mongo servers. The editors that we're using are the JetBrains products, WebStorm and IntelliJ, and we use a number of different SSH and VPN clients and RDC and TeamViewer to actually remote access our client sites so that we can manage the on-premise servers for them. For ticketing, initially we were using Zendesk, which was great. It did a lot of stuff. Cost-wise, it was significantly more expensive than what we were paying for the Atlassian stack. As a small company, we can survive on some of the starter licenses and the introductory offerings. For some of those things, we don't knock over into the enterprise level, which means that we can run fairly cheap on a lot of those things. And so the Zendesk subscription, even on the lower levels, was costing us more for the entire Atlassian stack, which we were using for everything else. So when Service Desk came out, that was really useful for us because it put everything into the Jira ecosystem to be able to track what we're doing and have everything in the one place. Again, looking towards having that central point of reference for all of our information. For us, again, as a small company, we all wear a lot of hats, so there's a lot of crossover between the various teams and the roles in terms of support and development. So being able to have everything in the same place to keep everybody aware of what's going on was really, really useful for us. When the tickets come in, they will appear in the dashboard or in the chat room that you're in, so everybody's immediately aware that there's an issue that needs to be dealt with. That's a rough overview.
That's awesome. And Dave, how about you? What tools are you guys using?
Well, we started off with HipChat about 3 years ago. Up until that point, we had been using all homegrown software. And when we were smaller, that was great. But now that we're trying to scale our business, it just wasn't feasible for us anymore. So we discovered HipChat, and then when it came time that we needed to replace our internally developed ticketing system, we turned to Atlassian and found that Service Desk would be a really great tool for us to use. So we use that in conjunction with Agile, and our development team and our engineering teams all use Service Desk. So I think that helps a lot to allow us to be able to link the tickets together and really be able to reference the different areas of our company all together in one place. So it's been really great for us. We do use the HipChat integration so that if a critical issue comes over, all the management team is basically notified instantaneously, and I can make sure that tickets get assigned and worked on immediately when we do have a critical issue. We use Confluence for our knowledge base, of course. We use the Atlassian calendar, which is really great. We always know what everybody's doing, no matter if they're adding events on their phone or their laptop. It just makes it really easy for everybody to use. And then we do use a few non-Atlassian tools, and I think the only reason for that is because they don't exist. We use Vonage Business for our phone system, SurveyMonkey to get customer feedback on recently closed tickets, and Intermedia for conference call hosting. But overall, we're very pleased with the tools that Atlassian has offered us thus far.
Yeah, it seems like both of your teams are integrating the products in the way that they're meant to be integrated, which sort of makes them more powerful overall. It's really interesting. Yeah, so the next question is sort of a 180 from that, but it's about chat. Why HipChat? How do your support teams use chat? And I just want everyone to know that I'm not talking about chat support or supporting external clients. I'm sort of asking about chat being used in everyday operations. I've heard the term chat ops thrown around a lot, and I know it's a bit of a buzzwordy term, but I think it gives a lot of meaning to what chat has become today. So what are the ways you guys are using chat in IT?
Well, for us, again, as I said, we're trying to make sure that we have a central point of reference for all of the stuff that the people who are on deck need to be aware of. So because we're already on the Atlassian stack on the developer side, we've generally got a Jira system open or a HipChat session open, or both usually. So for us, it made a lot of sense to integrate some of the third-party monitoring tools that are out there into the HipChat rooms. So we have a couple of rooms for developers and for ops, and a couple of combined one, which is just an aggregated feed. So with the Jira Service Desk, the integration for that is a no-brainer. The tickets pop up in the room and somebody can see as soon as that stuff is there. And then our third-party monitoring systems, which actually look at the health and the operational capacity of some of the servers. A lot of that stuff now supports HipChat out of the box. So Boundary has a HipChat action, which you can just configure, and it puts stuff directly into the rooms you nominate. New Relic has a HipChat channel. So you just set up the integrations, and then those notifications as things cross the various alarm thresholds that you've set will come up within the rooms that you're already working in. So by just keeping an eye on that feed, you get advanced warning if a server has a high load, and you can be potentially addressing some of those things before the customers are even impacted or before that problem snowballs into something else. So we generally try to be very proactive and react quickly to something when it becomes an issue, rather than spending your time placating customers who are annoyed with you afterwards and putting out fires. It's much better to be dealing with that stuff as it begins to become an issue. And that real-time notification, which comes up within the context of your workflow, makes it really easy to stay across that while not necessarily having to switch context out of what you're doing, which on the developer side is particularly important because you don't want to lose that productivity if you're constantly switching out of your workflow to look at something else. If you can just get a notification when something pops up, you can very quickly work out whether it's something you need to specifically address or whether it's something which can be dealt with by somebody else or at a later date. So as I said, we try to get on the front foot and deal with that as quickly as possible before it becomes an issue. But that only works if you're seeing those warnings as they come through. So by integrating it into HipChat means you will see it within your normal workflow without having to make a conscious effort to keep checking a secondary system or something else. So as a small team, we all wear lots of different hats. If something comes up, there's often a number of people who may be able to deal with that at a particular point in time. So having it come up on everybody's workflow just means that can be dealt with as quickly as possible by whoever's in a position to act quickly, which is great. So it forms a real command center for us, if you like. Everything comes through that room. If it's a help desk ticket, we'll see it. If somebody updates a blog post, it comes up. If there are pull requests or the build breaks in Bamboo or something like that, we get those notifications straight away. So everybody is kept abreast of what's going on, and we can react quickly and often before the customers even realize there may be an issue coming up, which is great for us.
That's awesome. What you said earlier about the server monitoring was super interesting. What sorts of thresholds do you have? Is it just like high load, or do you have like CPU or memory?
They all do. Yeah, they all do all of that sort of stuff out of the box. There's a number of different solutions. As I said, we've looked at Boundary and New Relic in particular, which both have good entry-level packages, which include a lot of the baseline stuff. There is a lot of very complex monitoring available, but for us, it's mainly just things like memory usage, disk space, CPU, and also whether the server's online. If a server falls offline for whatever reason, we know that's going to be a problem. But if we can see in the HIP chat room that the server has gone into high load and then has dropped offline, and then we start getting tickets saying people can't connect to stuff, we've immediately got a really good idea of what that's likely to be caused by. So rather than spend time trying to work out what the problem is, we can jump straight to that server and try and work out why it's dropped off the grid. So it can be a big time saver to have that context in terms of the sequence of events when you're trying to triage something like that. And if you don't have that stuff monitored, you can sometimes spend a lot of time ticking off the obvious things before you realize where the cause of the problem lies. So
Yeah, that's great. So it's like it acts as a triager as well, those notifications.
Yeah. Yeah, the context in particular is huge for us.
Yeah, that's the key part right there. Yeah, so Dave, how about you guys?
Well, when I first started working at Magview, one of the biggest problems that I saw was we didn't even have instant messaging. We're talking about small corporations, Halogenics and Magview. We were so small when I started that we didn't even have instant messaging. So I kept having this problem where I needed to ask someone something, and they're at their desk. So I get up out of my desk, and I go to their desk, and I go to ask them my question, but they're on the phone. So my options are to stand there and wait until I get off the phone, see if they're a super tasker and they can mute it real quick and listen to my question and help me, or just come back. And then, of course, if I pick that last option to go back to my own desk, then 12 more things are going to pop up. And then I may not end up getting to circle back to that initial thing that I had a question with. So obviously, instant messaging proved very valuable there, because even if the person I need help from is on the phone, they can absolutely bring up HIP chat real quick and listen to my question and answer it and help out that way. So that's been really, really great. I mentioned earlier the integrations help a lot. So if I have something out in a different department and it gets completed, or it comes back with a question for me, I see that in my HIP chat feed without actually having to go and open my ticket and then open the ticket from the other department. So it helps a lot. But we use it for fun too. We kind of have like a room where we just kick around emoticons and talk about what we're going to have for lunch. We have a WWS, who wants Starbucks? And we have WFL, what's for lunch? So we use it, to play hard and to work hard. I'm trying to think what else. I think that's basically it. I mean, I know you have topics later on for escalation and things like that, so I think I'll just stop there for this area.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like that you brought up how it's just like basic collaboration as well. Like on top of all the monitoring, if you have a large company and you need to reach people, instant messaging is the best way to go. And I can't even imagine a time where you couldn't do that. Like, that's the dark ages.
It was horrible, Sarah. I promise.
It's crazy.
It's also good for smaller companies. I'm just going to chip in here. It's also useful for smaller companies. If you've got a small team who can often be out and about doing individual things, being able to just ping off a message, so not only keeping track of what's going on, but just to be able to get a quick 1 or 2 word answer to things when they're not necessarily going to be at their desk or even in the office, or for distributed teams. It's really good for that as well. So you can really get a lot of bang for your buck by having everything in that one channel.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we have a lot of people that travel off-site for their work. And, if you're sitting in a radiologist reading room and they ask a question that you don't know the answer for, it's really nice to just have a blanket, room that you can go into and ask for help and get that answer really, really quick, instead of making it another thing you write down and follow up with them on a couple of days later. it's always better to be able to give that instant response, and HipChat allows us to do that in a lot of instances.
Yeah, it's sort of like removing roadblocks in a way, in a sense. And just, yeah, on that topic of HipChat and how we use it, I wanted to talk about another question that I think a lot of people have. It's the process for escalating tickets and how chat fits into that. So what happens when a ticket comes in, and what does it need to be escalated? What was your process before chat, and what is your process now for escalating tickets with chat? And I'll let you start, Andy.
Okay, cool. One of the best things about the chat for us is that it doesn't pull us out of the workflow that we're in. So if it's coming up in HipChat, you can see where it is, and then you've got links to immediately jump into the Jira issue directly when a service desk ticket comes in or whatever it may be. With a lot of the other systems, when we had Zendesk or when it was the individual monitoring systems without linking them all up, you get a lot of email notifications. So you lose a lot of context because you don't necessarily get the sequence of events, but also you have to generally go back into your email to get the detail of it. You may see a subject line, but you won't get the critical body part of that information, whereas the HipChat notifications tend to include the first couple of sentences of the issue or whatever it may be. So you can, at a glance, work out whether it's something that you need to actually get the laptop out, go into whatever third-party system it might be, and begin looking at the detail of it. So it triages a lot faster, and you don't have to be checking multiple points of reference. Are my servers up in the monitoring? Have I got tickets that have come in when I wasn't watching? Does somebody have a question for me back at the office? It just puts it all in the one place, which is great. So you don't have to continue to go back to your email to find out what's going on. And the other thing is, if you're getting so many emails throughout the day, it's easy to miss one in the sequence of events. If you're getting notifications when something starts, when it changes, when it finishes, and you get 7 or 8 messages per incident, and there's something that's a bit flaky and going up and down through the day, it's going to generate an awful lot of stuff in your inbox that you need to work out what's just a notification, what's something that's actionable and you need to deal with straight away. So it can be a bit of a time saver. And the other thing which we found with the service desk tie-in in particular is great is that we don't lose the context. If there's discussion with the customer and comments on the ticket, all of that gets stuck in a time-based sequence within the ticket. So you don't lose context of order that things happened in and the conversation that you're having with the customers, particularly if different people are working on a ticket. You can see what they responded to in the order that it was responded to, which if you're trying to hunt down a vague intermittent software bug can be really useful to know that they did this and then that, because the order of the steps may be relevant and help you to work out what's going on. So we find that that's a real bonus as well. In terms of escalation, we don't tend to escalate it. We tend to have, because again, we're across everything at roughly the same level, stuff generally will get solved by the agent who picks it up. We don't tend to escalate stuff across, but we do interact on those things either through the commenting system or through HipChat if we need to get opinions of the other people who have the relevant experience. So that's the way we manage that. So it's a big time saver is the thing for us in terms of keeping the context and just getting that additional second level support from within the team, if you like, without having to change the workflow.
Right, exactly. It's sort of like that audit trail is built into the workflow, as well as like it's just it's super easy to reach people. So you get that next level of expertise, as you said. Yeah, that's awesome. And Dave, I have like a screenshot of your one of your dashboards here. It's how, I guess it looks like it shows your team and their workload. So what's your escalation process and how do you use this dashboard?
Well, before we used any of the Atlassian products, the escalation process was kind of clunky, to be honest. Everything was manual. Like I said before about having to go to someone's desk and just sort of stand there and wait for them to get off of the phone. It worked, but it wasn't good for our customers because it just wasn't fast enough. So now that we've integrated HipChat with our Jira Service Desk, anytime I get a critical issue, I'm notified real time. Whereas before that, I would be looking, our SLA for issue assignment is 2 hours. Of course, not for a critical issue. That's, it's got to be right away. And without HipChat, I'm basically buried in the unassigned tickets queue, watching and making sure that things get out to the right people at the right time. But when I set up the integration so that when an issue that fits, these issue types comes in, I instantly get notified. And then when I see that, I can use our people dashboard to see which agents have the lowest overall backlog, and then go back to HitChat to go and ask them, hey, I have this critical issue. Is it something that you can drop everything right now to do? So I get that instant feedback, whether it's yes or no. If it's yes, it gets assigned to that person. If it's no, I'll just go back to the dashboard, see who's next on the list, and assign it to them. But what I really like is the notification that critical issue has been closed, because I know I can just assign it and basically sort of forget about it for a little while. And in my head, I would just start my own internal counter. And, if I get the notification that's been closed within an hour, then great. I don't have to really involve myself at all. But it's when I don't see something that I know to really engage myself and get up and make sure that we have, all the assistance that what the agent that's on that issue needs to get that issue. It's really, really great. Another thing they can do is, once I assign them the critical issue, if they don't know the answer and they need to escalate it, because it's a critical issue, they understand that, they can't go through the classic escalation process. So they're using HipChat to ask questions and get their answers to their questions and get the right people desk side to give them their assistance. And then, of course, when it's all said and done, I have them use a Confluence question to document everything that took place during that time, so that if and when the same issue comes in, they'll just automatically find it. They're on the knowledge base when they search Confluence. So it's been really, really great. I also like it. I said I also use it so I can be alerted if I escalate something to a different department. Say I found an issue and I know it's not a configuration piece. It has nothing to do with the person's computer. I'm pretty inclined to say, well, this has got to be an engineering or a development issue. So I just go into our different service desk projects and create a new ticket for that team. And then as those tickets are updated, again, I don't have to go into Jira and look it up and find out, here's my request. These are the ones that have been updated that I have to look and actually read. I just get notifications as they're updated with a little snippet of what that update contains, so I know if it's worth my time to go in and look at it. And our entire team uses that, from management all the way down to the actual support agents.
Oh, wow. So is it for, like, if your ticket gets escalated to a different development team and you want to sort of keep track of the status changes? Is that how you keep track of it then, with the notifications?
Precisely, yes. Because if I'm a support guy and I have something out in my development team, before we had the integration set up, my job was to look at my ticket, even though it's in my backlog. I can't do anything with it until engineering's done. I would still need to look at that ticket every day to see the linked engineering ticket, and then go out there to read the status and see if it's been updated. And if it hasn't been updated, well, then I just lost 2 minutes of my life where I could have been actually helping one of my customers. But now with the integration, when that engineering or development ticket's updated, I see that right there in my stream, and that's how I'm engaged to go out and actually, read that ticket. So it's a huge, huge time saver.
Yeah, that's awesome. I never thought about it that way. It's pretty cool. Um, and I know we talked a little bit about this before, but you mentioned it again, I think, Dave, that HipChat tells you when things are ready for action. And that notification feature is really interesting. Are there other ways you are using it to monitor support activity? Andy, I think you were saying you integrate it with third-party applications for server monitoring, but are there any other ways that you integrate HipChat for monitoring?
No, it's mostly through the integration of those monitoring tools, but then it'll be internal Atlassian stuff where tickets, as Dave was saying, get updated. You get transparency for all of the teams. They can see as things move through the various workflows, and if you've got stuff which is being held up by somebody else, you can very easily see what's going on and as you said, not have to change context to see what's happening with those things. So you don't spend a lot of your time checking emails or talking to people and say, hey, has this been done yet? You can see very clearly from the feed what's going on. So that's a real time saver. And over the course of a week, by the number of people that you have, adds up to a lot of wasted time. So not having to do that is huge.
What sorts of alerts do you have set up for the service desk?
It's just pretty much everything, actually. We have the specialist service room, which has all of the updates which happen to the ticket. So it notifies on all events. So when the ticket comes in, status changes, comments, all that sort of stuff. So as soon as the customer comes back to us with an update on something, we will see that room move and we know that something's been done. We can see what the response was, work out whether we need to jump on that straight away and jump across into Jira, or just, yep, they just said thanks for that, and we can just solve that one later and continue working on what we're working on. So it's that one glance triage stuff which is huge for us, because it means that we're not being dragged out of that development workflow because someone said, thanks, you fixed that for us. We know whether it's something that we've got to action or whether it's just somebody who's making a non-actionable comment, if you like, on the issue.
Right, got it. So you just get everything you need in the bits and pieces that you need it.
Yeah, and by, as I said, having different rooms with different levels of focus, you can work out how much detail you need and whether you need to drop everything with what it is as it comes through.
That's cool. And Magview, do you guys have anything set up for monitoring?
We do. It's kind of the same thing as what Andy had mentioned, because obviously, using Service Desk, I have an email feed that tells me every single time a ticket's been updated, whether it be, an internal field like a due date was updated, or if it's a comment that went out to the customer, or most importantly, a comment that came in from the customer. Because of the integration, I was able to filter all of those notifications out of my email and just get precisely what I need to manage the group through the notifications. And like Andy said, I have specific rooms for different things. So if, I do have my engineering room, I have my development room, but then my service desk alerts room is what I have set up and used so that I can really see things like that, so I can help direct my team's efforts in the right direction, depending on what kind of information is coming into us.
That's really great to hear. It seems like HipChat plays a huge role in your operations and tying everything together in real time. It looks like we have time for just one more question. Do you have any tips for other IT teams who are using the Atlassian stack and don't necessarily have them integrated or are just starting out?
Pardon me. I can answer this one, I guess, or our take on it anyway. Price is huge, and as you've probably picked up from my earlier comments, having a single point of reference which gives you not only the most up-to-date information but also the context that information arrives in makes a difference when you're trying to work out what a customer's problem may actually be. So you don't always get that context with an email-based workflow, apart from the fact that you've got to jump in and out of it. So having it centralized in something like HipChat means you've got everything in one place. You can, and also back, you can look at the history of everything that's happened in relation to that issue. So that saves you a lot of time. And the other really nice thing about it is that all of these updates get done automatically for you. You don't have to spend a lot of time manually processing information. Back when we were using Zendesk, we used to have to cut and paste a lot of comments on emails because the vast majority of our customers use an email-based workflow in terms of getting their support. And so they'll reply to something and you'll get all of the previous history of the information appended to each new update. So we used to have to clean up a lot of that stuff and just paste the relevant bits into the Jira issue relating to the ticket to make sure that we had that information. Stuff just gets done automatically within the sequence. We get the critical part of the update automatically and we can tell at a glance whether or not that's something we need to jump on and action straight away. So it's a massive time saver and you have a single point of reference to give you the up-to-date information. At the end of the day, whether you're a small company or a large company, you want to be spending your time building a better product and making sure that your customers are happy. So if you're not wasting time cutting and pasting email into monitoring systems or vice versa, then that's more time that you can spend on your product and your customers, and that's huge for us.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And Dave, how about your team?
I think if I had to give advice to someone who's new to using Atlassian products, I would say to absolutely, spend the time to figure out the reporting aspect of it. Because when we first got it, I was using queries and filters and then pasting them into Confluence to get different reports and things like that. But I noticed I spent so much time going in and updating the JQL every day for it to give me what I need. And we rolled it out so quickly that was really the best that I could do at that time. But I found that after really exploring the built-in reporting features of Service Desk, I'm now able to get all the information that I need throughout the day in just a few seconds without running any reports. I just go and I have these live charts and pie charts and line graphs, and it's absolutely amazing to be able to go in and see that without having to run a single report. I get everything I need probably in about 2 seconds. It saves at least 2 hours a day for me. I think the way that everything ties together, we talked about that, a couple times throughout this so far. I would really, encourage people to explore the integration, because all these products are really, really great on their own. And if you know that the integration exists, that it's very, very easy to overlook, I would think. But once you have it, I couldn't imagine without any of the integration now. It's really, really great. I think one of the big things going back to that reporting is that I now spend so much less time digging through data and manually collecting statistics that I'm able to now spend that time out on the floor actually helping my team. And since installing, the entire Jira stack, we've reduced our backlog by about 40%. We were stuck at over 600 for the longest time, even through this slow holiday time, because of course we got Jira in January, so we had our old systems through December. And right around then, we had a backlog of about 600 tickets. And for a small company, that's way, way too many tickets. And recently, in the past couple of months, we've managed to get ourselves below 300. And we've been there, and it's been very sustainable to stay below 300. And I definitely attribute these really great tools to that success.
That's really great to hear. And I like that you mentioned that, those two things, that the products themselves are great and they're very configurable. Like once you set something up, you can sort of play around with the data however you want, and from then on, like you have reports, you have whatever you need, you have your dashboards, and then the integrations as well. So that's awesome to hear. And
they're up to date too.
Yeah, exactly.
To run them, they're just always up to date. Yeah, it's great. That's my favorite part.
We'll be sending the recording to everyone who registered for the webinar, and if you had any questions, we'll have Andy and Dave answer them in a recap blog post following the webinar. Thanks everyone for listening. If you'd like to try any of the products, the ones that we mentioned here today, we had Jira Service Desk. You can visit atlassian.com/service desk, and HipChat, and that's just hipchat.com. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone.
Yes, thank you very much.